Hi, welcome to Punchline Talks the Business Breakfast Briefers. I'm Mark Owen, and each week I invite a panel of business experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's happened in their own individual business and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. Before I start, I'd just like to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors, and we couldn't do the show without them. Okay, let's introduce everybody today. We've got David Owen. He's the Chief Executive of GFirst LEP, Director of Economy and Environment at Gloucestershire County Council. So we'll find out what's happening in GFirst LEP next, and also a general look at the economy from David. We've got Enzo Mora. He's the Managing Director of the Mortgage Brain. The company has 110 staff based here in Gloucester and a turnover of 6 million. He's also the chairman of Gloucestershire Lawn Tennis Association. We'll find out all about the mortgage market and the housing market and what's going on there as well. And finally, never last but least, we've got Dr. Cheryl E. Whiting. What's the E stand for, please, Cheryl?
Oh,
why and why?
Oh, right. Okay, so it's my middle name, which is Elizabeth. But there is also another Dr. Whiting, and we often get emails and we often get invitations to conferences and things like that. So we get mixed up. So it's just a way of me distinguishing who I am.
Okay, thank you very much. I often wondered about that. And then you're a business trainer taking aspiration professionals to the next level. I could obviously do with that. And you've just brought out your new book, Professionalism Matters. So, well, there it is there. Very thick too. Anyway, thanks ever so much for joining us today. We're going to crack on this morning because there's a problem with the internet, so we're not going to do my normal search of the front pages. So, David, I'm going to start with you. What have you picked out from the papers, please?
A couple of stories, if I can, Mark. One really brief one. But first of all, it's COP28 at the moment, which is the annual gathering of governments from across the globe to sort out how we get to net zero by 2050, ultimately. And yesterday they signed what's being described as a landmark deal to help the world's poorest and most vulnerable countries pay to get to net zero. So huge amount of money set aside by those richer nations to help poorer countries get to net zero. And I know the accusation when this is talked about is, well, this isn't fair. Why should we be paying for poorer countries to get to net zero? Have a look at the carbon emissions from countries over the last 100 years, and you'll see why. It's because the richer countries have been guilty for the vast majority of the carbon that's been pumped out into the environment over the last 100 years, the vast majority. So USA, much more carbon emissions over the last 100 years than China, which is the one which we all throw accusations at all the time. So if we're going to have a global effort, we're going to get to net zero. We had the announcement yesterday that 2023 will absolutely be the hottest year on record, and we're not even we're only just into the final month of the year. They already know that unless December is remarkably cold right across the world, it'll be the hottest year on record. So climate change is happening. We need to do something about it. Thankfully now, COP28, they've agreed how they can help some of those poorer nations get to net zero. And the second story is on the front of, I think, pretty much all of the papers, is the untimely death of Shane MacGowan yesterday. Fairy Tale in New York. Absolutely, 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, the best Christmas song ever, in my humble opinion. Hopefully gets the #1 this Christmas to celebrate the life of Shane MacGowan, who died at 65.
I totally agree with you. It's one of my favourite songs. I've got to ask you then, there is a line in that song. Should it be altered?
I was sort of in two minds about this. I think you can make a lot of fuss about whether a line in a song should or shouldn't be altered. Just get on with it and change it. If it's offensive to people now, just change it, for God's sake. It doesn't really matter, does it? I've said for God's sake now, which probably offends some people, doesn't it? But
there we go. It's the same with Elvis Costello and, you know the one I mean. Something about Berlin Wall in it. Anyway, right, moving on. It is too early in the morning. Thanks for that, David. Enzo, what have you picked out for us?
I've picked out a couple of stories or headlines relating to Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And he's been quite prominent in the news this week. The first one being Musk's foul-mouthed rant at Twitter ad boycott.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering where this one's or where X is going to end up as an organization. And I'm fascinated by the fact that his rant seems to have just been taken by the whole world, and perhaps no repercussions following it. I don't know what you think about it.
Well, as a media person, if I had a client who did that, I'd be pulling all my hair out. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, Cheryl, but he did a sort of finger movement in front of a live audience and basically told Apple and Disney, wasn't it, Enzo?
Yeah.
To go and shove it. We were going to spend their money. I mean, the man doesn't care, does he? I mean, he may be so rich he doesn't care. Is that it?
Well, I don't know what that feeling's like.
fair play. So, okay, so that's the first story. But and then what's the other one? I think it's about trucks, is it?
Spot on. I was watching the news this morning, and they were showing videotapes of the new Tesla Cybertruck, and it looks like one of them US buggies that landed on the moon back in the day, and they're promoting it by firing shots from a gun, and how it can take that. I'm just wondering why we need that sort of defense on a truck, really.
Only an American company could do that, couldn't they?
Didn't they had a problem with it the first time they launched it 4 years ago. They brought it on and they couldn't get into it and they had to smash the window to live on stage. There's something like that, wasn't it, as well? I mean, he just seems to be getting. It's a bit like the submarine he wanted to take over and save those kids in the caves, which was completely barking that they never asked for. Do you like him, Enzo, or do you admire him as a businessman? What's your take?
I don't know enough about him because I've only really recently started paying any attention, because I guess it's this year he's been more prominent in the news than ever before. So perhaps on a future breakfast briefing I'll give you an opinion, but I don't have one today.
Okay, I'll put you on for that. Thanks ever so much. Thanks for that. Okay, Cheryl, great to have you on the show. You're my newbie today, if you don't mind me saying. I always put the newbie on the last because I just think you get you warmed up a little bit. So, Cheryl, what have you picked out from us today?
Okay, well, very topical and very seasonal. I've and because I've had a cold myself, I found an article about man flu, and in actual fact, some scientician has discovered that men feel cold symptoms more than women. So it goes on to explain, and some of you might know that I teach anatomy and physiology, but we've all got three lots of sex hormones: estrogen, progesterone and testosterone, that are produced within our gonads and our adrenal cortex. But the balance, obviously, between male and female is different. So women have estrogen and progesterone in greater quantities, and that gives them a kind of immune booster, whereas men have more testosterone, and that suppresses their immunity. So what happens is, if you've got two people, a male and a female, with the same cold virus, men are going to experience the greater effects, and their symptoms are going to be worse. But it's all to do, this article is all to do with rest, because obviously when we're poorly, we need a bit of rest and recuperation. And women are much more able, or feel able, to take time out, put their feet up to get physically fit. And apparently this article says that men feel uncomfortable in doing that. And so to justify putting their feet up and having a rest, they exaggerate their symptoms, allegedly. But the article talks about the fact that we should put aside our kinds of gender biases, really. And it talks very much about the fact that when we're ill, whatever the symptoms we have, we're going to feel pretty rough. And so therefore we need to kind of appreciate that. And at the end of the day, everybody needs a little bit of TLC, a good warm cuppa and a box of tissues.
Well, a man who, I'm going to go back to David, is a man who puts his feet up quite a bit. David, don't you hate, and I'll ask Enzo this as well, don't you hate the man flu tag? I hate when people says, you say, I don't feel very well. They say, that's man flu.
Yeah.
It does over-dramatize it, doesn't it, a bit, probably? I don't think.
Enzo?
I think you can feel a bit rotten without being tagged as man flu, can't you?
Yeah. Enzo?
Cheryl, you had me at gonads. I thought that was a slang word, but
no,
it's not.
it's an anatomical word. Yes.
It's funny, Cheryl's taken the intellectual level of this show. It's never gone this high before. Okay, anyway, show us, what's your next story?
Oh, my next
Gonads.
story. No.
First time we've had gonads on this show as well.
Christmas baubles.
You know, when you teach anatomy and physiology, you have to have no fear. Let me tell you. Anyway, so my next article is it was in the Times, and it's grab a Greggs treat while it's still hot. And the thing is that Greggs have decided to go a little bit posh, shall we say, and in Phoenix, Newcastle, they've got a bistro, and they're also having one in Paris, and they're offering Greggs fare, only they're making it into an a la carte menu. So I was wondering really as to who the market was going to be for this. So rather than have us walking down the high street eating our sausage roll out of a paper bag, they want us to sit at a table and you know, enjoy it with hollandaise sauce, goose fat, roast potatoes, and the like, really, pancetta, chestnuts, and sprouts. So I decided I'd have a look online, and because the other thing I was interested in is what the Sun readers were going to think about this. Well, of course, they're up in arms about it. They're saying that this is a hate crime, that it amounts to gentrification. But not only can you enjoy your pasty that seems to be cut in half with and decorated all very nicely, you can have a cocktail at £9.50 to go with it, really. So I think, is it going to last? I was thinking, is this just a novelty? Is this something that will take off? But also I thought, you know, if somebody invited me on a date and they wanted to take me to the Greggs Bistro, would I be insulted or would I feel special? I don't know really, but so...
Well, I'm going to ask you, Cheryl, you know, if someone did offer you a date and did take you to Greggs, would you feel special?
I don't know. I just, yeah.
If I took my wife and said, darling, I'm going to take you to Greggs tonight and we'll have a nice few cocktails.
I don't know about you, Enzo, but I'm feeling a little bit like a third wheel at the moment here.
Go on then, guys. I mean, I can't imagine Cheryl walking down the road with a Greggs anyway in a bag, but hey ho, that's how I view you.
No. Yeah, you're right.
So, I mean, I'm a big fan of Greggs. Enzo, will it make the course? Can you see this as a good business model?
Well, do they have tables in Greggs?
Yeah, they have tables in Greggs, mate.
It's in Phoenix in Newcastle, so they're doing it in a big department store.
What do you mean? Do they have tables in Greggs? Have you not been in a Greggs, mate?
I thought they were just like walk-in places that you went and got your food and then left.
No,
but then I think I've only ever visited them on a motorway services. So.
Okay. I tell you what, I'll have a date with you in Greggs in Gloucester King Square, but no cocktails though, I tell you. Dave, do you see this as a big business model?
I suspect it's a really, really good PR stunt by Greggs, isn't it, to draw more attention to the business? And I suspect that within 12 months, they will have miraculously closed in Phoenix in Newcastle and gone back to their main business of selling us all sausage rolls.
I couldn't agree more. They're marketing geniuses at Greggs. Okay, thank you ever so much for that, Cheryl, as well, and for the rest of the panel for their newspaper clips. Okay, well, I'm going to get back over to you, David. So, GFirst LEP, let's be honest about it, it's very sad, and it's now gone in the format that it is, really. So let's just put that to one side. And you're very optimistic about the future. Let's touch on that, please. What is the future for GFirst LEP?
So the really, really brief history. Government said we're not going to fund LEPs from the end of this year. We're expecting that activity to happen in local authorities. So we've got a very good relationship with all of our local authorities in Gloucestershire, have done for a long time. And so I've been seconded over to County Council for over a year now for 4 days a week and still running the LEP in my other day a week. So County Council's Cabinet signed off the paper a couple of weeks ago now, or last week, saying that they would take on the functions of the LEP, or the vast majority of the functions of LEP, LEP board had agreed that back in September. So we're now in the process of firming that up with the staff team, and then going through the detail in the first quarter of next calendar year for the team to transfer over from 1st of April. So really importantly, Growth Hubs will carry on doing the brilliant work they do, supporting businesses across the county. Our business groups will carry on doing the really important work they do to be the voice of business for Gloucestershire. Our inward investment activity, promoting the county internationally, is going to carry on. Our promotion activities, schemes like Made in Gloucestershire, are going to carry on as well. So because we've got that really good relationship locally, because Gloucestershire is a relatively simple county in terms of borders and boundaries and political boundaries, it means that we've been able to relatively early on sign off that deal. And the story is not the same across the country. There are some LEP areas where businesses are tearing their hair out because they don't know what the future holds at the moment. So yeah, I am very optimistic about the future. There's really good support from the county council, and as I say, from all of our district councils as well. Really good support from business. We've got to keep it going. Got to keep the activity going, because we've done a great job over the last decade or so of promoting the county and bringing money in. So onwards and upwards.
And you know, the thing is, there's a great what should I say? There's a great movement really from the business community to back it and for it to continue. That's what I hear all the time, and we don't want it to fail. We're very fortunate, as you rightly said. I don't think a lot of people realise how good our GFirst LEP is compared to the rest of the country, isn't it? I've got to ask you one question, David. Obviously, we wrote the report from the council meeting with the funding and stuff in, and on there was redundancies that said 2.6 people were going to be made redundant. I just want to know who the 0.6 is.
Oh, Mark, you're so back in the 70s, aren't you? Have you not heard of part-time staff?
Oh, okay. Quickly then, the general economy. What's your view on it at the moment?
So two things I'd say. One, at the moment, from two slightly different angles. One is unemployment is starting to just creep up a little bit. Last few months, it's gone up only by about 0.1% each month, but it is starting to creep up. We've seen that probably for, I think, the 4th month in a row now. We've had that kind of increase. The good news in Gloucestershire is we're still below the national average. We're below the southwest average on unemployment. So it's not as bad as it is elsewhere in the country, but it is starting to creep up. And that says something about the economic situation at the moment. Clearly, Christmas is going to be really, really important. The next 4 weeks for lots of our small businesses, or 3 weeks as it is now, it's going to be really, really important. When we get beyond Christmas, we get into January, February, people looking at their rents and things in the retail sector and hospitality. It's going to be really important to see what the impact of a Christmas season when all of us are feeling the pinch in the pockets still quite a bit. The other angle, though, is that vacancy rates are starting to come down, but our vacancy rates in the county are still way above the unemployment rate. So it's something like 9,500 people claiming unemployment benefit at the moment. Last month, there were just shy of 20,000 vacancies advertised in the county. So what I'm hearing from businesses is I can't recruit people. It's really difficult to recruit across all levels. And that's been really difficult for 12 months now at least. But clearly we're seeing those unemployment rates start to creep up. So there's something going on in the economy about just a little bit of maybe a little bit less confidence at the moment than there's been over the last 12 months. So let's get through Christmas, see what impact that has on hospitality and retail in particular, I think, and then we can reassess in the new year.
Okay, thanks ever so much. Fantastic overview there, David, of the economy, which leads me very nicely over to Enzo, who also is at the forefront of the economy with mortgages and rental and houses and things like this. It was a good sort of finger in the air barometer, shall we say, of the marketplace. So, Enzo, what are you seeing in the mortgage market at the moment and housing?
Well, we've seen growth in activity over the last 2 to 3 months, where we've found press has been a little lighter on the doom and gloom. Inflation's been making its way down, and banks and building societies, although the Bank of England's base rates remained the same, banks are starting to drop rates on deals that they're offering. So I'm a huge Christmas fan, love Christmas time, but only wish that we could postpone it for a few months at this time, just so we can carry on with the growth that we've seen, because we usually find a bit of a slowdown over the Christmas break.
So you'd like Christmas to stop so you can carry on making money? Is this the season to be jolly then, Enzo? So
Yes, please.
So is there some good deals out there then? How for the mortgage in the mortgage market?
There are better deals available across the board. So almost 12 months ago, we saw a huge hike in interest rates of the deals that were available, and typically a fixed rate that you could get on the marketplace a year ago had jumped to around about 6.5%, 7%. And they're now south of 5%. So 4 point something is available right now.
Right, okay, because there was fear it was going to go to 6.1%, and there was a big fear that obviously people wouldn't be able to get mortgages or afford them, which would obviously slow down the whole of the economy. What about the housing market itself? Is it slowing down, or is that a sort of December thing? I don't want to put words in your mouth. What's your view on that at the moment?
Well, we've seen more activity in the housing market. We do a lot of work with new build developers across the country, and inquiries have increased on a monthly basis over the last few months. And I expect that to slow down over December, but I don't think it will all come to a standstill. I think there's still a huge amount of activity out there.
So you're pretty optimistic then, looking forward?
I am, yes.
Okay, well, that's great. I know you've got a great business there as well, and a huge supporter of Punchline. So I do appreciate that, Enzo, as well. Okay, thanks ever so much, guys. Cheryl, great to have you on the show. Let's talk about your book. Obviously, it's been out. I believe you sold all the copies that you printed the first time. But first of all, tell us about the book. What's it all about?
Okay, so Professionalism Matters is a book about things that matter to clients, and therefore need to matter to us if we want to kind of succeed in business, kind of win clients and exceed their expectations. So over the course of about 12 chapters, I explore some kind of key issues around things like trust and reliability, consistency, professional decision making, respect, subjects like that. But what I have done is that I've interviewed 60 people in business to understand what professionalism looks like and feels like, and what good practice they apply that they can pass on to other people in order for them to, the idea is that we do better business when we are admired and people like us. And so it's all about actually how do we become our professional best and be the person that everyone admires and wants to do business with. So it's full of kinds of practical kind of tips and advice from the people that are in business. So a lot of this book is coming from the heart of people that are in business and that have navigated their way through the professional maze themselves. So it's really aimed at people that are freelance, perhaps people that are contractors, small to have a small business, small to medium enterprise, and anyone with a client-facing role. So it's getting good reviews at the moment, 5-star reviews. All my reviews have been 5 stars so far on Amazon. Yeah.
Oh, good stuff, good stuff. And so what is your top tip then? Or what was the main thing that came out after talking to these 40 people?
60 people.
By the way, now I never got the call, by the way.
So, I mean, one of the things is that I should say is that as an academic, I've studied the concepts of professionalism and taught on those for many years and researched it. And I really wanted to look at it in the context of business, largely because when I set up my own business, I thought I knew it all. And then suddenly I found out that I kind of didn't. And professionalism looks and feels very different depending on the sector that you are in. But one of the things that kind of came out of this is the need for self-assurance, that in actual fact, when people feel self-assured that they are a professional and they are doing the right things right, that was actually then elevating them further as a professional. They were able to kind of up their game a little bit more because they felt quite internally confident. And so a lot of people were putting a lot of effort into gaining feedback, you know, self-directed learning, you know, self-discipline. So it was quite interesting, really, that it kind of, there was like a threshold. If you were self-assured, you automatically became a professional by kind of default, really. So
Thanks
that
so
was quite
much for that.
insightful. Yeah.
And it's my Christmas reading, by the way, so I shall crack through it. And thank you for the invitation to your launch party, which had a real great buzz to it. It was a very nice evening at the Everyman Theatre. So thank you for that. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for in this particular section. So I'm going to move on to the pick of the punchlines. David, what have you picked out from this week's punch, please?
That's your brilliant video, Mark, of the forum project in Gloucester, which which I think you did a couple of days ago. I went on Punchline. What a great development for Gloucester. Yeah, as the LEP, we've been big supporters of the whole county, but putting the transport hub in, or bus station as it is, a few years ago, providing the funding for that, seeing that change in the centre of Gloucester, and now seeing that awful car park having come down, the old bus station having gone, and the forum going up. I think it's really exciting to see what that's going to look like in summer of next year, when it's due for completion. New hotel in the city centre, new office space, a real emphasis on future of communications and cyber as well. So really, really good development for the whole county, but particularly for Gloucester, that one.
I couldn't agree. And I don't know if you saw the other video I did at Debenhams, and I'm on the roof of Debenhams looking across the forum, and you can really see the scale of the two developments. You know, it's huge undertaking by the university and by the city council. Fair play to them. They really go for, I don't know if you have a chance to look at it, Enzo, yourself. You probably drive past it or walk past it, but my goodness, it's coming on. Thanks for that, David. Enzo, what have you picked out from this week's punchline, please?
Your special report, Black Friday, was it good for you? Reason being, I was last Friday pressured into, we needed a new vacuum cleaner for the office, and I was pressured by my team here to make a purchase on Friday because I was able to get a huge discount. I went ahead and made the purchase online, expecting delivery on Monday, didn't get it. And the company I purchased it from, instead of agreeing a new date to send the item, they just cancelled the order and gave me a refund. So then I had to go and find another place to buy it from, thinking I was going to have to pay a lot more money. But I managed to get one at the same price on Tuesday this week. So Black Friday, was it good for you? Your article sort of suggests that it's probably something that might disappear in the future. And also saw a Which article stating that 99.5% of deals advertised are false.
Yeah. I don't buy anything on Black Fridays, and I'm surprised, mate, you didn't go to Gilman's, but we won't go into that. I'm gonna phone Robert Gilman up and say, Robert, you gotta watch this video, mate. Anyway, there was so much of that. And so, Cheryl, so what's the pick of the punchlines, please?
So as the top vape firm drops sweet flavours over appeal to children, and this is about a company that sells vapes that have decided they're the leading brand, Elf Bar, and they've decided they're going to no longer have a dessert or soft drink flavours because they are appealing to children. But the thing about this article is that they're very pro-regulation, it would seem, because we often think about, vaping gets a bad press, largely because, of course, it is attractive for children. We tend to think of nicotine being very damaging to the lungs, but it also is very damaging to the brain. And, children's brains are still kind of developing. And it kind of affects the area of the brain that affects attention span and causes restlessness and anxiety. And then to overcome the anxiety, people vape more. So we get this kind of cycle of dependence. But what was interesting is that they are very pro-regulation. And I thought that was a very positive response. And a very proactive approach, because I often think if you're proactive about something, you can get yourself a seat at the table where those discussions and things like that are, licensing and regulatory discussions are going to be taking place. And I think, you know, regulation in this field is really, really important, because once you start to have regulation and licensing, you often get a lot of investment in kind of science-backed kind of information. It allows people to market things much more responsibly, but you also give the consumer, you know, it empowers them to make informed choices. But I think you also see a lot of transparency within the supply chain and a lot of compliance, which is going to increase standards of safety, which I think ironically is the one that leads to increases in sales, I guess, really. But also the article makes this point later on about the fact that it causes a lot of litter and things like that. And I think once you've got licensing and once you've got some form of regulation, then other people come to the table. So you begin to open doors for engagement with, you know, charities, people that are interested in sustainability, climate change and things like that. So I think it's a very positive thing, and I think it's very responsive of them, shall we say, to be taking a proactive approach.
No, thank you ever so much for that. No, I shall tell Simon that you enjoyed that. Simon was our reporter who wrote that piece up as well. Did a bit more in depth as we like to here at Punchline. So thanks ever so much for that. My pick of the punchlines this week, it has to be Debenhams and Forum, but also the story that was yesterday. It was the city council looking to raise parking charges. Basically, you will not be able to stay for a minimum of 1 hour. They're looking to, the minimum you can book is 2 hours. Now, I laid in bed last night with my wife and I had a little rant about this. And she said, well, actually, it kind of makes sense. It might actually encourage people to stay longer. So anyway, I bowed to pressure and agreed with Mrs. Owen, because that's the thing. If you've been happily married, you sometimes have to do. Anyway, so that's all we've got time for this week. Thanks ever so much, my fantastic panel. Great show. I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. My wonderful sponsors, accountants and business advisors, Hazelwood. And next week, we'll be back again. So if you like the show, please like, share and subscribe. But for now, it's all in the punchline. Bye.
Bye.